Hello and welcome to episode 17 of Smooth Traffic. We're only talking about one thing in this episode, so it's a Smooth Traffic special, and it's all about the SMMT Test Day 2016 at Millbrook Proving Grounds in Bedfordshire. Let's get started. Right, so once a year, all of us journalisty, motoring people get invited to Millbrook Proving Grounds in Bedfordshire for the annual sort of National Journalist Test Day. It's called SMMT Day. This year was absolutely fantastic. Basically, the day is like having that big box of cars you had when you were a kid and throwing all the cars out on the floor and just playing with every single one you wanted to. So, loads of major manufacturers there. Aston Martin were there this year, Bentley were there, Renault, Toyota, you name it, they're probably there. It's my third time there, so I went along, but this time I took, for his very first time there, Smooth Traffic's very own Robert King.
We don't know that much. It was very special for him.
Yep, I went. It was wonderful. I had a lovely time.
We did. We had an absolutely fantastic time. King is absolutely dripping with enthusiasm after being there because we got to drive a number of brilliant automobiles, starting with the most expensive car we drove on the day, the Bentley Continental GT V8S convertible.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah!
What a car to start with, Kingy.
Now I'm excited. Yes indeed. £210,000 worth of automobile. After all of the add-ons, etc. What an absolute delight to drive as well. If you ever look at a Bentley, you think they're massive vehicles, but when you're in the car, it doesn't feel like it at all. It doesn't feel any larger than a standard sort of saloon car. Obviously it is, because it's more like a boat. But yeah, just an absolute delight to drive. We took it out on the road route. Johnny drove sort of the first half of the route. Then we stopped off and I got in and had a drive. And yeah, without doubt the highlight of my day, which was a bit of a pain because it was the first thing we did. Everything else just paled in comparison. But yeah, just the sound of the exhaust note on it was just fantastic. We went through a tunnel at one point, well, under sort of a small railway bridge. But yeah, even that 7 or 8 metres of enclosed space was enough to really get a good throaty roar out of the exhaust.
Yeah.
And it was just a pleasure to drive as well. It was so comfortable, as you'd expect from a Bentley, but easy to drive. Very much idiot-proof, I would say. Obviously, we were talking about that a couple of episodes ago when John drove the Audi R8.
Yeah.
Similarly, with the Bentley, I think, again, we were talking about the fact that it's probably going to be first-choice luxury car for lottery winners or just rich people who don't know what to do with their money.
Yeah, and also that kind of shows by the number of footballers that drove them, doesn't it? I don't know if they still do drive them, because I think they've mostly moved on to SUVs now, but I know 8-9 years ago all the footballers drove Bentleys, and I think it's going to be first port of call for lots of people who come into money and want a very nice car, and the Bentley Continental is probably one of those default options. I remember one of my first experiences with Bentley was at my very first Goodwood Festival of Speed trip, when I went there on the Moving Motor Show Day on the Thursday, and at that point I was a bit shy about approaching luxury manufacturers and stuff and examining their cars, and I asked the guy at the Bentley stand, like, do you mind if I have a look at this car and get in it and stuff, because at that point I didn't know you could just climb in and do whatever you wanted at the Festival of Speed Motor Show, and he said yeah go ahead, absolutely, and he said their approach was friendly and open for that reason, because if you suddenly became wealthy tomorrow, they want you with your lottery win to go in and buy a Bentley and not to feel like it's out of reach or to feel like they turn their nose up at you. Bentley is completely not like that at all. They're very approachable and friendly and open. So if you do get the chance to bump into someone from Bentley at a motor show or indeed the Goodwood Festival of Speed, pop down and have a chat with them and have a look at their cars, because they're really wonderful. And it changed my perception of Bentley a bit, actually driving it this time, because before I drove the Bentley, this is my first Bentley drive, and it's Kingy's first Bentley drive as well, I wasn't too sure about them. I wasn't particularly fussed by them. I thought they'd probably getting a bit old. They looked a bit old. They've been around for a few years. That shape's been there a while now, and it didn't really appeal to me that much. But having driven one now and having enjoyed one on the road and experimented with it a bit, I'm completely changed. I think it's an absolutely wonderful car. As Kingy said, the ease of driving is one of the absolute highlights of it. You can just absolutely go at your own pace. If you want to really go fast, you can just put it in sport mode and hear that wonderful exhaust note and drive the nuts off it, but if you just want to waft around with the top down, you can do that equally as well. And the Bentley is happy to flick personalities depending on your needs.
I would definitely buy one as well. In a heartbeat,
Yeah.
I would buy one, without question.
I would now as well, definitely.
So what was the second car you drove, guys?
Well, moving on from the Bentley, obviously that set the bar pretty high, so we went over to Seat and got in an Ibiza SC Cupra.
Yep.
Okay.
Just a I don't want to say standard hot hatch. Would you say it's more along the lines of these sort of super hot hatches, or whatever the term was that you came up with back a long time?
No, I'd say it was less than that, because it's more of an old school hot hatch, I would say, because we've got the cars like the Focus RS now and the Honda Civic Type R that are upwards of 300 horsepower. The Ibiza Cupra's just got the very low amount of about 190, which is still a lot of horsepower, but it's kind of slower in comparison to the others now. But it is also a bit smaller than the Focus and the Civic. It's a bit of a smaller car, so a bit lighter. Very, very good fun. I don't know if you chaps remember, I used to have a Skoda Fabia VRS that I bought in about 2013.
Yeah.
And it's basically like that, but this time it's got a manual gearbox and the engine is different. So it's a 1.8 turbo now instead of a 1.4 supercharged and turbocharged. A little bit more power, but about the same. Not a huge difference. Manual gearbox instead of a default DSG automatic. And it was fine. It was fine. It was comfortable, which isn't something that hot hatches can always be accused of being. And very drivable, really. It's difficult to really analyse a car because we often only get 15 minutes on the hill route at Millbrook, and it's sometimes not even that long if you really give it some beans. But the thing that stuck out about the Ibiza Cupra for me was just the sloppiness of the manual gearbox. I just didn't enjoy changing gear in that at all. It felt vague on the box and on the stick itself. The clutch was fine, but it felt vague in the middle, and it kind of spoiled the feeling of the car a bit. I think I've been sort of spoiled by Ford and Honda, who have engineered these really, really slick manual boxes, and they feel very sharp and they go in really easy. It's really hard to explain this, but it just slots in really easily. But Volkswagen products aren't like that. The manuals in the Volkswagens are really sloppy and vague in feel, and I just don't like them. But the engine was good, the power was good, it was quite good fun to throw around some corners, but that box really did put me off a bit. I don't know what you think, Kingy.
Oh, the gearbox was horrible. I mean, when I first got in and pulled away, went to change up to second and just found neutral, and then tried to put it into gear again and found neutral.
Yeah.
I've never had a gear changing experience like it, I'll be quite honest. But other than that, no, very enjoyable car. Definitely up there as an option if you're looking to get a reasonably priced hot hatch, I would say.
Yeah, it's good.
And you don't want a Golf, then yeah, the Ibiza Cupra is definitely up there.
Yeah, it's good value, but you would find the gearbox was just as terrible in the Volkswagen Polo GTI, or if Skoda was still making a Fabia VRS, which I hope they do. Come on, Skoda! It would be the same in that as well, because they'll just use the same box in each one, and it's difficult. You don't know when the gear has gone in sometimes because there's no definite feel when it pops in, which is baffling, really. I expect a lot better of Volkswagen Group.
Indeed. So moving on from that, we went over to Mazda to see if we could get a drive in an MX-5.
Yes.
Unfortunately, it was fully booked out till about 3:45 in the afternoon.
Yes.
So instead, we hopped in a CX-3.
Yes.
Close runner-up in the car to take your mum to the shops in from our 5-car garage segment.
Yeah, very nice it was too.
That was very pleasant. There's not much more to say about it than that.
Nope.
As good as the HRV?
I wouldn't say it was any worse than the HRV.
It's going to run it close, isn't it? Definitely.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it's got a nicer interior.
Okay.
But nothing to write home
No.
about. But then those cars aren't anything to write home about, are
No.
they?
Good bums cars.
It was good. I thought it handles like a hatchback. It just handles like a normal hatchback.
Yeah, very much
And
so.
that's probably a good compliment you can pay to these sorts of cars, that they just feel like normal cars. It didn't feel too high or too sloppy. It didn't really roll around in corners much. It just felt like a really planted average hatchback, really, just a little bit chunkier. So it was absolutely fine. I mean, as King says, with those sorts of cars, there's not much you can say about them. They're comfortable, they're practical, and they're kind of uninspiring. But Mazda do a good job of at least making them look good with this new Kodo design that they've got. The grille looks really cool, the interior's really sharp, and yeah, it drives quite nicely. So I think it was a great shout for a mum's car, definitely, because I think a lot of people will really like that just because it's pretty sharp for what it is, really.
So a little bit more fun for your next car. You said it was a Suzuki Swift Sport.
Yes, we went over to Suzuki,
Mhm.
who John has a long-standing rapport with the people working there. All two of their of their UK PR team.
Yeah, bless the PR team.
And yeah, hopped in the Suzuki Swift Sport. Had a quick drive around in that. It's very basic for what it is, I think. But then I think that's reflected in the price of it. What do they start at? About 14, 15 grand, something like that?
It's even less than that. I think it's you can get one for about 13. Yeah.
Again, no complaints with it, but it just didn't set the world on fire at all. It was just a good solid hot hatch.
So if you're a man who wants a hot hatch and you can't afford a much more expensive car, then that's probably a good place to go then.
Oh, it's a great place to go first out. Absolutely great. I mean, I said to Kingy we should go and drive the Swift Sport because it gives you a really good basic understanding of like the hot hatch segment. It's the cheapest hot hatch. It's probably the most old-fashioned hot hatch on sale now. 1.6 normally aspirated engine, about 135 horsepower, no more than that. So quite low on power really.
Okay.
But it's very lightweight. It is very basic, like Kingy says, but it's very, very enjoyable to drive. It's just really good fun. It's nice and small and short. It's very agile. It's planted, and for the price, it's really a very, very good car. It's one of those cars that's quite underrated, actually. I think if I was going to take out a car for the first time on the Nürburgring or an intimidating circuit like that, I think a Swift Sport would be a really good shout because you can't really go wrong with a Swift Sport. I mean, like he says, it doesn't set the world on fire. It doesn't blow your knickers off, but it is a really, really good car for the money and for what you get for that money. Top work, I think. I think Suzuki need to update it now. But it's always been one of my favourite hot hatches, even if it is probably missing some attributes that could make it competitive with the best.
So then, after driving the Suzuki Swift, we thought, let's head over to Audi and see if we can get in the R8. They were both out at the time, but they were running a very good system of if you hang around for long enough, then you'll just get straight in it.
Yep.
Rather than having to sign up at the start of the day, like Aston Martin did, which meant that the Aston Martins were fully booked out by the time we'd even arrived. So yeah, the R8s were out, so we got in an S8 Plus for a quick spin around, and that was the car that I was probably most surprised by. Actually, no, something more surprising is to come along in a minute. But up to this point, that was the car I was most surprised by. I think if you're looking for a car, if you're doing long distance travelling across Europe or something, or just a lot of mileage generally, I think you can't go wrong with the Audi S8. Just phenomenally rapid. 660 brake horsepower, something like that.
I think it's just about 600 horsepower. I think the base horsepower they quote is something like 598. But cars always have more horsepower than what they quote. That's just the minimum possible figure. I reckon it's going to be over 600 horsepower, that car. And it's another massive twin-turbo V8. It's a massive saloon, really. It's a big, old, heavy, luxury saloon. And yeah, it's a real piece of Autobahn love, basically. You could just sit on the Autobahn and cruise at 155 mile an hour in that. And you would be there in no time. I don't even know where you're going, but you would be there in no time. It's absolutely rapid. It's the kind of car Ben would really love, I think.
Oh, definitely.
I know Ben's like big into his electric tech and all that, but I think if he, had several important meetings in, let's say, Toulouse or Zurich or, Bergamo, somewhere that, needs a bit of driving to, Ben would probably love the Audi S8 because it's just so comfortable, so powerful, it's completely effortless, and everything you need in a car is in the Audi S8 Plus. It's probably the ultimate everything car, except the fact it can't off-road, of course. But then who does off-roading?
I might have to give one a try one day.
I imagine that Ben would take a private jet anyway. But enough about Ben. So when we got back from driving the S8, within moments, the R8 V10 Plus turned up.
Yep.
Now, Johnny had already driven one, so very kindly he said, "Don't worry, Kingy, you knock yourself out. I won't have a go in this."
Actually, King, I've driven two Audi R8 V10 Pluses. I've drove a red one and a blue one.
Yep, shut up. Well, I've driven a yellow one. Bright yellow, stunning machine. I just lost for words with it, really. It lived up to expectation. It was one of two cars that I wanted to drive more than anything else that were going to be at the SMMT day. Yeah, it certainly lived up to expectation. Did not disappoint. Yeah, I just don't know. I don't know what more to say about it, really. That John hasn't already covered in our previous segment.
I think what strikes me about the R8, as a car, and I did say this in the last segment or last episode. I can't remember when exactly I talked about it now, and I am going to repeat myself a bit with this. But for someone who's not used to driving high performance cars, and let's not forget, like the Audi R8 V10 Plus is an extremely high performance car, over 600 horsepower, quite light, big V10 engine. It's a serious piece of kit. That it's as close to anything else on the road in terms of performance. You know, there's not going to be much that's going to be up there with the R8 V10 Plus, but it's just so easy to drive, and it's not intimidating at all. It looks like a weapon, but you know, it drives like a kitten, really. And I think for someone like King, who, you know, I think it's fair to say hasn't driven too many high performance cars and owns an Alfa Romeo Mito, for him to be able to get into an Audi R8 Plus and feel at home on a hill climb circuit at Millbrook pretty quickly, it says a lot about how accessible Audi have made their supercar, really.
Yeah, without doubt. I mean, I'm glad that we didn't take it out as like the first drive, because I think going up the hill in that first drive of the day for us, yeah, I probably wouldn't have been so keen, just because, you know, I hadn't had the chance to really learn the route. But yeah, by the time we got in it, yeah, it was just an absolute delight to drive.
Yeah.
Up the hill climb. Obviously stopped off for a few photos, which I believe we've already tweeted, but we can tweet some more, just so that you can all see the spectacular yellowness. And I think John posted a video of the sound of the exhaust as well.
Yep.
When we were at the photo point, I sat in it and just gave it the beans while John recorded it. Another fantastic exhaust note.
It makes a hell of a racket, doesn't it?
Just amazing, absolutely incredible. And you can even, when you do that, you're sat there in sort of neutral, just whacking your foot down. You can feel the whole car shaking as that V10 behemoth in the back just rumbles. The whole car just shakes as you sort of do that. Just incredible.
It's a hell of an engine and just a hell of a car, really. I'm really glad you got the chance to drive it, because it's sometimes it's hard to explain to people exactly what these things are like unless they've experienced themselves, and that is part of my job, obviously. So I must be okay at it, but I think sometimes you just need to experience something for yourself, and you know, a massive V10 engine in a supercar body is just one of those things.
So moving on from that,
opposite end of the spectrum, King.
Well, let's tell a story first. So we went over to Caterham first, because John was convinced that he needed to go out in a Caterham. Yeah. And he needed to try and scare the hell out of me.
Yep.
In said Caterham. So we wandered over. There was a bit of a queue. So they said, probably be about 20 minutes or so. Fine. So we thought, well, what can we do? Looked around. Not much about. The sun was out, and I spotted the Fiat 500C.
Yeah.
And I said, shall we just take that out? Bit of a laugh. So trundled out in the 500C onto the city course, which I don't think you'd been on the city course before, had you, in anything?
No.
In your previous years?
No, I like going fast normally.
Yeah. So yeah, the city course, it's just sort of a small, windy course with some, sort of stop road markings and things like that, just to try and imitate city driving. And yeah, we sort of trundled round it, and had Absolute 80s blaring on the radio.
Oh, you gotta love Absolute 80s.
The soft top roof down. Just looking like a couple of ballers, really, in this tiny Fiat 500C. And then you figure out, well, you've really got to put it to the test by going around these corners. And my goodness, does it handle exceptionally well.
Yeah.
It's an incredible amount of fun, which surprised me no end. Just the cornering, I mean, little, if any, body roll, I would say, John. Going around those corners, it took them without any problem whatsoever.
Yeah.
Even when, there's one bit which is sort of a hairpin, didn't even flinch, happily trundled around that corner at 20 mile an hour or whatever it was. Yeah, just an amazing piece of machinery.
Yeah.
I can't praise it highly enough. It really, really surprised me.
We're big fans now, and it's a shame we didn't drive the 500C before we did the Cornish Village car for the 5-car garage, because the 500C is well in with a shout of winning that now. It's just as much fun as a Volkswagen up to hurl around some corners. Yeah, body roll is fairly limited for quite a small car, really, but the grip is just outstanding, and you can have so much fun in that car. I'd never consider one before, and it's still difficult for a man to drive a 500, especially a 500C. But I would love to have one of those for a trip or something, because it was a whole surprise for me. I just wasn't expecting it to be that good, so I was really, really impressed. But a bit expensive, just over 19 grand.
Yeah, the one that we were
ours came in at.
So the question is, guys, if it's not suitable for the Cornish Village, girls love it, date night car?
No, there's not enough room in the back.
I think the lasting memory of it for me will be pulling back into where all the manufacturers are, with Absolute 80 still blaring out over the radio. Just John and I with massive grins on our faces, and people looking at us like, what an absolute couple of morons.
Didn't we pull up alongside Tyler from Inside Lane with Absolute 80s blaring out, and we had a race, him on foot, and us...
No, that came later.
Oh, did it? Okay.
In the last car we drove.
We'll
get to that shortly. If anything, the last car we drove got more laughs than the 500C.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Stay tuned for that, guys. So yeah, after the Fiat 500C, we went back to Caterham. Unfortunately, the Caterham still haven't got back, so they said probably another 15 minutes or so.
And that was the point you threatened to take me out in a Rover 214.
I mean, threatened is quite an aggressive term, but yeah, I did.
So anyway, I managed to tell King no. Basically, no. I would not let him self-harm himself by driving a Rover. So I managed to just about get out of that, because that was not on as far as I was concerned. It's SMMT day. We get to drive saucy stuff, not an old Rover. Forget about the old Rover.
Look, News Press had brought a Rover 214 SI. I feel that you should have experienced that in all of its glory. Glory's probably not the right term, but in all of its existence. But hey ho, we didn't.
No, not on.
And so we also couldn't get a drive in the Abarth by Posto, could we?
No. But anyway, the Rover 214 SI is history, King. But the future could well be the Toyota Mirai hydrogen car.
It could. So that's what we drove. Albeit instructed to take it careful, because they were running out of hydrogen.
Yeah.
And there's nowhere to refuel it.
There's nowhere to refuel it, no. The closest refueling station was at Heathrow Airport.
Yeah.
Not particularly convenient. But again, we took that out on the city course, because we'd had so much fun in the 500 that we thought, yeah, this could be the new way to test everything. Plus, we thought it would be slightly gentler on the energy usage.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, it's a big car. That's not necessarily a bad thing. I think interior wise, it's there's a little, you've got the sort of hydrogen meter. There's also a meter to show the recovered energy from when you're braking or slowing down. All very sort of tech savvy. There's an H2O button, which we presume is what you press to then spurt out the water that the vehicle has produced as part of the hydrogen energy process.
Yeah, Ben will know more about that. I just know that when I got in and pressed the accelerator, it went forward, and that was enough for me.
So how well did it go forward?
Well, it was a surprise, because John didn't even think it was on, did you?
No.
We sort of sat there and John said, "Is it on then?" I don't know, put your foot down. And he did. And it went forward, and then nearly hit a car that was coming towards us. But yeah, the one that we had was sort of bright silver, all chromed. Chrome paint? Does chrome paint exist? I suppose that's a thing.
It's probably a wrap.
Because it wasn't real chrome. That would be ridiculously heavy. But yeah, it was a decent car. I don't have any complaints about it. Exceedingly quiet, obviously, and a little bit safe. But then I suppose you're not looking for excitement in a Toyota Mirai, are you?
Well, it feels. I mean, we had to drive it so carefully because of the fact it was running out of the petrol gas stuff.
Gas.
The hydrogen, whatever that's made
Hydrogen
of,
gas.
it was running out of it anyway, and it felt quite low powered as a result. We were taking it fairly easy, but it's very quiet and it sounds a little bit like an electric car. There's not much noise. It's just a sort of a little bit of a whir.
Until you get out, when you're stood by the front of the car,
Yeah.
it sounds like a refrigerator unit.
Yeah, it does.
It's really, really making one heck of a racket.
Yeah.
But I spoke to the guy at Toyota after we'd driven it, just to sort of find out what the refueling network's like over here. Currently appalling is the answer. There are only 4 refueling stations in the country.
Okay.
One of which is at Heathrow, and apparently there's a taxi firm at Heathrow which run a complete fleet of hydrogen-powered cars, and they do exceptionally well because, well, they live at the the refueling station. But no, Toyota are working with whoever to increase it to about 20, I think it is, within the next 12 months or something similar to that. If you live in Scotland, don't buy a Toyota Mirai because you won't be able to refuel it. If you live in London, yeah, why not? Give it a bash. You get, what is it, £5,000 or something off from the government.
Yeah, you'll get the grant, won't you, for that?
I mean, they're still expensive.
What sort of range does it get?
The range on it,
Yeah.
That was something I didn't ask. But when we took it out, there were 23 miles left on it, and we did the city course. We did the city course twice, and the city course I think is 0.6 miles.
Yeah.
And presumably because of the recoverable energy that we'd also saved when braking, when we got back to the place, it was still on the same. It had dropped while we were out, but then I did notice that when we actually got back, the range was back up to what we'd left with.
I think we must have collected some hydrogen on the way.
Maybe.
I think the biggest problem the Mirai has, though, is the fact that it's £66,000.
Oh, crumbs, that is a lot.
That is a lot. That's Tesla money. That's very nice Tesla money, more or less. And I think, given the fact that Tesla has a more coherent plan for installing superchargers around the country, and the Tesla is a much nicer car to drive generally, I think that's probably going to hold it back. I can't see it working at the moment. I'm sorry, Toyota. I just can't see it working at the moment. It's a lovely idea and it works really, really well, but I just think maybe the opportunity's passed them by.
You need more people on board, really, don't you? Other manufacturers
so.
Trying the same thing.
Yeah, I think that the fact that everybody else seems to be looking to electric is perhaps a sign that hydrogen is not going to be the option for us. I guess we'll find out in 20 years.
It doesn't always work, does it? The best format doesn't always win. Look at VHS Betamax, you know. Sometimes it's just the one that everyone jumps on board with.
So yeah, after some hydrogen fun, we went back to Caterham, and the 360R had finally returned.
Yes.
So John got his wish, and we went out on the road route again.
Ooh.
And John couldn't stop laughing.
Oh,
he had such a wonderful time.
oh, I did. I really did.
And I'll be honest, as a passenger, I enjoyed it as well.
Ooh.
I felt completely safe in the knowledge that John was driving. And yes, I'm not being sarcastic about that. I think if I'd been out with a stranger, I would have felt quite uncomfortable. But yeah, John's a pretty decent driver, so...
Oh, you.
Although he obviously was quite excited about the Caterham and thought that it would shit me up, I believe are his words. Yeah, I felt completely at ease. I mean, it's an incredible vehicle. Just absolutely mental, bonkers beyond belief.
And that's just the average one that we drove as well, the 360R.
Yeah.
2 litre, 185 horsepower, something like that. It weighs as much as a feather, though, and that's what makes it so incredibly quick. It is a really, really fast car. My biggest memory of driving the Caterham is coming off of a roundabout, squeezing the throttle on, and shouting, "Suck my balls." It was such good fun. For me, that was my car of the day. Better than the Bentley, better than the R8, better than the S8, because driving a Caterham puts you right back to the basics. You've got no safety equipment, you've got indicators that don't cancel, which is just a toggle switch on the dashboard. You've got no ABS brakes, from what I remember the Caterham guys telling me, so you have to be very careful on the brakes, you have to be very careful on the throttle because there's no traction control systems, and the steering wheel is about the size of my wallet, and my wallet is often empty, so it's not very thick either, and it's so much fun and so engaging as a car. You feel absolutely everything, and it makes a tremendous racket, and it's more comfortable than it looks as well. You know, I've had back problems, everyone knows about that. It's not something I'd want to drive for 3 hours, but to have a quick hour and a half blast around the countryside, it would be absolutely perfect. And I think for the money, there's going to be nothing else as exciting as a Caterham. They're just absolutely incredible machines, and if you ever get the chance to hop in one and experience what that's like, you should do it, because it feels like a racing car, sounds like a racing car, and for the brief time you get with it, you'll feel like a racing driver as well.
Well, speaking of back to basics, after the Caterham, we went over to Renault, not to drive this car, but we ended up getting in the first generation Clio.
Yeah.
Which was a real blast from the past. I mean, I never had a Clio. I don't think any of us have ever driven a Clio before. But it was just going back to that time before there was power steering, when you put your foot down on the accelerator and nothing really happened. It was a terrible time to be alive, really. But what an absolute dream that car was. It was in exceptional condition. Took it out on the hill route, first 3/4 of the route, absolutely fine. Mm-hmm. And then we got to a big hill, and yeah, you just drop right down the gears, and you still willing the car up by prayer, just anything really.
I actually opened the passenger door and tried to sort of do the Fred Flintstone, like leg along the floor, just try and help it get up the hill. I think we dropped from like fourth gear all the way down into first to get up that hill, because it just wasn't going up there. But I think it was a 1991, this first gen Clio.
Yeah,
and it looked like it had just come out of the factory today. On the day, you know, it was absolutely, as King says, absolutely stunning condition. It's obviously been well looked after, and yeah, as an experience, fantastic. And I love it. I absolutely love it when manufacturers bring their heritage cars to SMMT, because it gives you the chance to experience something you might never get to experience again. Who knows when we're going to be able to drive a first generation Clio again? You know, unless we go out and try and buy one, but it won't work. If we go and buy one for 250 quid, it won't get home. So it was nice to drive one that actually does work, and yeah, it was like being back in 1990 something again, and I half expected to hear some really crap pop on the radio.
Who knows when you're going to drive a Rover 214 again? But anyway, so we got back with the Clio, and then we climbed into our final car of the day, which was the Renault Twizy.
Yes.
Is that technically a car?
Well, yes. Yeah, you can fit two people in it.
Electro kart.
Yeah. If you don't know, the Twizy is the car that you sit one behind the other in, so the passenger squeezes in behind the driver's seat. Then the driver's seat is pushed back, so the passenger can't really move. And then you just go off and use some electricity. Once again on the city course. Probably not quite as much of a comfortable drive as the Fiat 500C. Felt slightly less safe, but again, this was because, although I praised John for his Caterham driving earlier, when you're sat immediately behind the driver and the car is only 2 foot wide, you become very, very conscious about the fact that, could it tip over?
Almost certainly.
But then, you put it in the hands of John and you think, this could definitely tip over. But it didn't.
I did try.
Yeah, you did try. But yeah, when we were driving out in it, people were giving us odd looks and generally mocking us for going out in it. But it was good fun.
It was brilliant.
You can certainly see why they'd be popular city cars. Exceptionally small, pretty nippy,
slightly driftable.
Slightly driftable, yeah. Jesus Christ, that was an uncomfortable few minutes for me. But I mean, there's nothing to the doors. This was the most surprising thing to me. The doors. How would you describe them, John? They're kind of like they're not gullwing. They're the ones.
They're like sort of scissor doors, aren't they?
Yeah.
But they're optional extras as well.
Yeah, but when they're closed, they don't really look closed.
No, they still look.
There isn't
open.
an obvious locking mechanism that you can see, but yeah, apart from the fact that John was driving it, I felt fairly safe in it, and yeah, I mean, you're probably not going to kill yourself because you can't go that fast in them, but yeah, just don't go around corners too quickly because it's quite a harrowing experience.
Driving the Twizy was a recipe. No, what it was it was a ticket to be exceptionally naughty, because on the city course no one's watching, and so I decided to see if the Twizy was performance-like, shall we say. So I went around plenty of tight corners at speeds that were perhaps excessive, hairpins, tight right-angled corners, just to see what it had really. And it has got grip, but the grip gives up when you go around a corner at about 30 mile an hour. So you have to slow down and take corners properly. I was absolutely just chucking it around to just see what it had, and yeah, when we brought it back to Renault, we were slightly concerned about the smell coming from the tyres, because the tyres had taken a bit of a beating whilst I was out driving it. But it just wanted me to misbehave as soon as I got in it. The electric torque is so much fun. It takes a little bit of time to build up. I think they've probably engineered the motors to not give instant torque straight away, like say Tesla have. So you put your foot down and it sort of builds up instead of just giving you everything at once. That's probably for a combination of economy reasons, and probably also for reasons that big ginger lads don't ruin the tyres when people take it for a test drive. But it was I really loved it, and I'd love to have one just to nip down to the shops in and get a coffee.
And to trap your friend / podcast presenter in the back of.
Oh yeah, when we got back
John got out.
Yeah, when we got back to Renault, I forgot that I had to let you out.
So John got out, shut the door.
I'm still impressed you got into the back, to be honest.
Well, he was there talking to the Renault guys, probably for a minute or so, and then I thought I should probably make a point of this now, so I just sort of stuck my head out between the driver's seat and the door frame. Could someone let me out, please? Much to the hilarity of people. But I think it was just John stalling to try and keep them away from the smell of those tyres.
Yeah, that was a part of it. I have to admit that was a part of it. King, what did you think of the Millbrook Hill route and the facility in general? Because it was your first time at the facility, so what did you make of it?
Oh, it's amazing. I mean, you can see why so many manufacturers use it for testing, because it's just got such a great variance of routes and whatnot. You know, we went on the high-speed bowl only a couple of times with the two Audis, didn't we? Just to, you know, see the sort of acceleration. But
yeah,
you know, it's a good indicator of motorway driving, obviously. And I would imagine that if you've got a particularly speedy supercar, then that would be, well, I mean, I imagine it would go past in a second. But yeah, the hill route, really well varied road, sort of a cross between the B roads of Britain and sort of the non-motorway roads of continental Europe, really. It's got a bit of everything, and very hopeful that I'll be invited back again next year, because just a tremendous day out.
It's a really great circuit, the hill route, and I think everybody's favourite bit is the little jump, because if you hit the jump at some certain speeds, you can get some air, which is always good fun. You can fly over the bumps, and it makes you giggle a bit. I can't remember what we got air in now, King. Was it the CX-3?
Audi S8.
Oh, was it the S8? Goodness me. So, yeah, we flew over the hill a bit, got a little bit of air. There's a great variation of corners, and it's quite a challenging little circuit, so you have to behave yourself. The marshals are there for a reason. People have crashed there and hurt themselves, and hurt cars, more importantly. So you do have to respect the rules a bit and treat it with respect, because you will have an accident if you don't. But it's a great facility, a really great track, and SMMT Day is great because everybody's there, so like a lot of the guys we know, they're all there. We can have a chat with them, bump into each other, trade stories, talk to the PRs, and drive some really lovely machinery at the same time. It's just a shame that they can't do it over 2 days. I think to try and fit everything into one day is almost too difficult. So hopefully in the future they'll introduce a second day. I'd love that to happen, because it means you might get time to do more things. But a great day out. We thoroughly enjoyed it. My car of the test day was, of course, the Caterham 7 360R, for just a pure driving experience and just shouting like an idiot when you drive it. King, I think you were going to go for the Bentley, weren't you?
Yeah, Bentley Continental GT V8S. I've still got the bit of paper that they gave us with all the additional options on it right in front of me. Still staring at it thinking, yeah, it'll only take me, I don't know, 57 years to earn that money, probably.
Get started.
By which time they'll probably be slightly cheaper, so, or they'll be
classic.
They'll be classics, and they'll be 4 times as expensive. But yeah, without doubt, that was my car of the day.
And I suppose the wild card is the Fiat 500C, for just being an absolute laugh.
Yeah,
so much fun. I'm completely shocked by that. But so yeah, Bentley Continental GT V8S convertible, the Caterham 7 360R, and the Fiat 500C. What a mixture of cars we've picked there that are our favourites. You know, we've got one for every eventuality there, really. Okay, so that wraps up the SMMT Test Day 2016 special here on Smooth Traffic. We've had an absolutely wonderful time at the event. Thank you to all the PRs and manufacturers who turned up with all their business cards and cars. And thank you for the SMMT for hosting a wonderful event again. And thank you to Millbrook for, closing the circuit early. We had a fantastic time anyway. Oh, and before we go, remember now we've got our brand new website up and running, smoothtraffic.co.uk, so wander over there and have a look. Maybe leave us a comment. Maybe share it with some friends. It's entirely up to you, but we hope you like the site anyway. It's brand new. And until next time, thanks for listening to the SMMT special. We've got some cool stuff lined up as always, so stay tuned. And don't forget, give us a like, give us a subscribe, and get in contact with us at Smooth Traffic on Twitter.